Steps to be wise. Wisdom is the one thing that changes everything, and the one thing that almost no one is deliberately, seriously, daily working to build. Not intelligence, not knowledge, not talent or ambition, or the specific combination of circumstance and effort that produces the visible achievements that the world uses to measure a person's worth. Wisdom, the specific, rare, genuinely extraordinary quality of knowing how to live, of knowing what to do in the specific, complicated, frequently ambiguous, never quite as simple as the theory situations that constitute the actual texture of an actual human life. Think about the difference between the person you know who is the most intelligent and the person you know who is the wisest. These are almost never the same person. The intelligent person impresses you. The wise person helps you. The intelligent person has answers. The wise person has perspective. The intelligent person is right about many things. The wise person knows what to do about the things they are right about, and critically, what to do about the things they are wrong about, and the many more things that do not have a clear right or wrong answer at all. And the difference between them, the specific gap between the impressive intelligence and the genuine wisdom that changes lives, is not a gap in raw cognitive capacity. It is a gap in a specific kind of practice. The specific, daily, completely unglamorous practice of examining your own life with the honest quality of the person who genuinely wants to know what is actually there, rather than the person who wants to confirm what they already believe is there, who genuinely wants to understand what the situation actually requires rather than what they would prefer it to require, who genuinely wants to become someone capable of the wise response rather than simply someone who can recognize the wise response when it is pointed out to them. The Stoics built their entire philosophical tradition around wisdom, not intelligence. They were clearly intelligent people, but intelligence was not the goal. Not knowledge. They were voracious readers and learners, but knowledge was the material, not the product. Wisdom. The specific, practical, daily built, genuinely transformative quality of knowing how to live, and of having built, through the specific practice of the examined life, the character from which the wise response is the natural expression. Today, on the Stoic Mindset, we are going into the complete architecture of the steps to be wise. Not as the theoretical description of what wisdom is, as the specific, practical, daily applicable instruction for how it is actually built, in the ordinary moments, through the specific practices, through the genuine examination that is the only path to the genuine wisdom that the examined life produces. This is the most important lesson available, and it deserves every minute of the time we are going to give it. There was a Roman consul named Gaius Aelius Gallus, who served during the reign of Augustus, and who became known in his time not primarily for his military service, which was significant, or his political career, which was substantial, but for a specific, visible, completely genuine quality that the people who knew him consistently described with the same word. They called him sapientes, wise, not clever, not knowledgeable, not well-connected or politically skilled, or any of the other qualities that the Roman political world produced in abundance and rewarded consistently. Wise. The specific, rare, completely genuine quality of someone whose counsel, sought in genuinely difficult situations, produced outcomes that the person seeking it could not have arrived at alone. The story that was preserved about him, preserved because it illustrated something that the people who recorded it found genuinely instructive, is not the story of a dramatic military victory or significant political achievement. It is the story of a single conversation that his closest friend had with him during a personal crisis of the specific, painful, completely human kind that no political achievement and no military victory can address. His friend's name is not preserved. What is preserved is the account of what happened when the friend came to Gallus in the specific, desperate quality of someone who was genuinely lost in a situation that felt genuinely unsurvivable. The details of the situation are also not preserved. What is preserved is the quality of Gallus's response. He did not offer the solution. He asked 3 questions, slowly, with the specific, unhurried quality of someone who was genuinely interested in understanding the situation before engaging with it. And the 3 questions, not dramatic, not sophisticated, not the questions of a person performing wisdom for an audience, led the friends to arrive, through his own answers to his own questions, at the understanding of his own situation that he had been unable to reach alone. The friend wrote about this afterward. He said that Gallus had done something that no amount of advice from anyone else had done. He had helped him see what was actually there rather than the version of it that his pain had been constructing. And the seeing, once it happened, produced the understanding that the advice had been trying to provide and that only the seeing could genuinely offer. When someone asked Gallus what his gift was, what produced the specific quality of insight that made him valuable in the genuinely difficult situations, he said something that the questioner preserved because it was so precisely, so unexpectedly right. He said, "I do not know more than other people. I am willing to see more clearly. And I have practiced the seeing for long enough that what was once difficult is now the thing I most naturally do. I am willing to see more clearly, and I have practiced the seeing for long enough." That is wisdom. Not the accumulation of answers, the practiced capacity to see clearly. And the steps to wisdom are the specific, daily, completely real practices through which the capacity to see clearly is built. The first thing to understand about wisdom, completely at the foundational level, is what it is not, because the misunderstanding of wisdom is one of the most significant obstacles to genuinely pursuing it. Wisdom is not knowledge. The most knowledgeable person in the room is not necessarily the wisest. The specific accumulation of information, however extensive, does not produce wisdom. It produces knowledge. And knowledge, without the specific, practiced quality of knowing how to apply it, how to bring it to bear on the genuinely complicated, frequently ambiguous, always contextually specific situations that genuine life produces, is not wisdom. It is the material of wisdom, potentially, but not the thing itself. Wisdom is not intelligence. The most intelligent person in the room is not necessarily the wisest. Intelligence is the capacity to process information, to construct arguments, to navigate formal reasoning with speed and precision. Wisdom is the capacity to know what matters and what does not, what to do and what to refrain from doing, how to treat people, and when to speak and when to be silent, and where the good life actually lives and how to navigate toward it in the specific, messy, non-theoretical conditions of an actual human life. Intelligence is necessary for wisdom, but not sufficient for it. Many extraordinarily intelligent people live very unwise lives. Wisdom is not experience. The oldest person in the room is not necessarily the wisest. Experience provides the material for wisdom, the specific encounters with the difficulty and the complexity and the ambiguity of the actual world that the wisdom needs as its raw material. But experience without the specific, reflective, honest processing that wisdom requires produces not wisdom, but habit, the habitual response to the familiar situation, which may or may not be wise and which cannot be evaluated without the wisdom that the mere accumulation of the experience does not provide. Wisdom is the specific, developed, genuinely built capacity to see clearly, to see what is actually there, what the situation actually requires, what the genuine good actually is in the specific, complicated, never quite as clear as the theory, conditions of the actual situation. And the capacity to see clearly is built, specifically, daily, through the practices that we are going to go through today, from the combined materials of genuine knowledge and genuine intelligence and genuine experience, processed by the genuine, honest, daily practiced examination that converts those materials into the genuine thing. The first step to wisdom is the practice of honest self-examination, the specific, daily, non-negotiable, completely non-defensive practice of looking honestly at what is actually in you rather than at what you would prefer to find there. This step is first because it is foundational. Every subsequent step rests on it.
Without it, the knowledge you acquire is filtered through the self-deceptions you maintain. Without it, the experience you accumulate is processed through the biases you have not examined. Without it, the intelligence you deploy is applied in the service of the conclusions you have already decided to reach, rather than in the genuine pursuit of the conclusions that the honest examination would produce. Genuine wisdom requires the capacity to see clearly. And the first and the most important obstacle to seeing clearly is the specific, comprehensive, completely natural human tendency to see what is convenient rather than what is true, to assess the self in the situation through the lens of what the self would prefer to be and what the situation would be most comfortable if it were. The honest self-examination is the practice of dismantling this lens. Not permanently. The human tendency toward self-flattering perception is not a defect to be eliminated, but a feature to be compensated for. But daily, through the specific practice of asking, with genuine honesty and genuine curiosity, what is actually there, rather than what the comfortable self-image claims is there. Marcus Aurelius conducted this examination every day for 40 years.
In the private journals that were never intended for publication, he wrote about his own character with the specific quality of honest, non-defensive, genuinely curious examination that reveals a man who was more interested in what was actually there than in the comfortable confirmation of what he preferred to believe was there. He wrote about his irritability, his laziness, his temptations toward the comfortable story, his failures to live up to the values he had committed to, not as self-punishment, as the genuine, practical, forward-looking engagement with the specific, accurate picture of the actual character that the actual development required. This examination, specific, honest, non-defensive, daily, is the first step because it is the prerequisite for every subsequent step. The person who does not know what is actually in them cannot develop it accurately, cannot address the genuine gaps because the genuine gaps are not visible through the self-flattering lens, cannot build wisdom on the actual foundation because the actual foundation has not been honestly assessed. Begin the examination tonight in the specific, honest, non-defensive quality of the person who genuinely wants to know what is there, rather than the person who is managing the information toward the most favorable available interpretation, and return to it every evening, as Seneca recommended, with the same quality of honest, curious, forward-looking engagement, because the examination, practiced daily, builds the most foundational prerequisite of genuine wisdom, the capacity to see yourself clearly. And the capacity to see yourself clearly is the beginning of the capacity to see everything else clearly. The second step to wisdom is the deliberate, systematic, genuinely serious study of the people who have been genuinely wise, not as the admiration of their achievements, but as the specific, practical, completely applicable learning from the specific, practical, completely real practices that produced the achievements. Wisdom is not invented from scratch. The Stoics were deeply aware of this. They were voracious readers of the philosophical tradition that preceded them. Marcus Aurelius began his meditations with a detailed accounting of the specific things he had learned from the specific people who had been most important to his formation, the qualities they embodied, the practices they modeled, the specific wisdom they expressed in the specific, everyday, completely ordinary choices that the extraordinary character produces. Not because he was collecting examples to imitate in the external sense, the performance of the qualities rather than the genuine development of them, because he understood that genuine wisdom is most efficiently built through genuine engagement with genuine examples, that the person who has genuinely seen genuine wisdom expressed in the genuinely difficult situations of a genuinely lived life has access to information about the practice of wisdom that the person who has only read about it in the abstract does not have. The study of the wise is not biography as entertainment. It is biography as apprenticeship. The specific, serious, genuinely engaged apprenticeship of someone who is not just reading what happened, but is trying to understand how the wisdom was built, what the daily practice looked like, what the character was made of, what the specific, unglamorous, completely real choices in the ordinary moments produced the extraordinary quality that the extraordinary moments revealed.
Read the Stoics, not as historical curiosity, as the specific, practical, completely applicable instruction of people who built genuine wisdom through the genuine practice and who documented that practice with the specific, honest quality of people who are more interested in the genuine truth of the practice than in the impressive presentation of it. Read the biographies of genuinely wise people. Not the hagiographies, the accounts that present the wisdom as innate, given, the natural expression of the special person who was simply born to it. The honest biographies, the ones that show the building, the ordinary days, the mistakes, and the corrections. The specific, unglamorous practice that produced, over time, the quality that the dramatic moments revealed. Study the wise. Not to imitate the external expression of their wisdom, to understand the internal practice that produced it, and to apply the understanding of the internal practice to your own daily, specific, completely real practice of building the same thing. The third step to wisdom is the practice of genuine listening, the complete, deliberate, continuously demanding practice of actually receiving what other people are saying rather than hearing it through the filter of what you have already decided you know. Wisdom requires information, the specific, accurate, completely real information about the situation as it actually is, rather than as the confident, pre-existing framework claims it is.
And the most reliable available source of information about the world as it actually is, as opposed to the world as your own perspective, inevitably limited and inevitably biased, constructs it, is the genuine, unhurried, completely receptive listening to the people who inhabit parts of the world that your own perspective does not reach. Most people listen to respond. They hear the beginning of what is being said, begin constructing the response, and wait for the speaking to end so that the already constructed response can be delivered. This is not listening. It is the performance of listening while actually conducting an internal monologue that will be delivered as soon as the other person stops speaking. The genuine listening that wisdom requires is the specific, complete, genuinely receptive quality of actually receiving what is being said, allowing the full communication in all its specific complexity and all its genuine nuance to arrive before the response is formulated, not as the polite waiting that the performance of listening provides, as the genuine, curious, completely open reception of information that might change what the response needs to be. Epictetus said this with characteristic directness. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. The ratio is the instruction, not as a social nicety, as the specific, practical recognition of someone who understood that the person who speaks more than they listen is the person who is receiving less information than the situation contains, and who is therefore operating from an incomplete picture of what the situation actually requires. Socrates, who the Stoics considered among the wisest people who had ever lived, was famous for listening, for the specific, genuine, completely unhurried quality of his attention to what was being said, for the questions he asked that were not the rhetorical questions of someone who already knows the answer, but the genuine questions of someone who is genuinely curious about what the other person's answer will be. Practice genuine listening in every conversation where the situation contains information that you have not yet received, in the specific, humble quality of someone who understands that their own perspective, however extensive, does not contain the entire picture of the situation, and in the genuinely curious quality of someone who understands that the information they do not yet have might be exactly the information that the wise response required.
The fourth step to wisdom is the complete, daily, Stoic-grounded practice of sitting with complexity, rather than immediately resolving it into the comfortable simplification that the impatient mind consistently prefers. The genuinely complex situation, the situation that has multiple relevant dimensions, multiple legitimate perspectives, multiple genuinely valid considerations that are in genuine tension with each other, is the situation that wisdom is most required in, and that the simplifying mind is most tempted to mismanage. Because the complexity is uncomfortable. The genuinely complex situation does not yield immediately to the confident conclusion. It requires the specific, patient, genuinely uncomfortable quality of holding multiple, partially contradictory considerations simultaneously without forcing the premature resolution that would allow the comfortable settling on a single, clear, immediately actionable position. And the impatient mind, the mind that has been trained by the speed and the binary simplifications of the modern information environment, consistently prefers the premature resolution to the patient complexity. It sorts the complex situation into the available categories. It assigns blame and credit according to the available frameworks. It arrives at the confident conclusion before the evidence has been fully received. And it presents this premature, simplified, framework-imposed conclusion as the assessment of the situation. The wise mind does the specific, completely different thing. It sits with the complexity. It holds the tension between the competing valid considerations without resolving it prematurely. It asks the questions that reveal the additional dimensions that the first impression missed. It waits, genuinely, patiently, with the specific, unhurried quality of someone who understands that the genuinely wise response to a genuinely complex situation requires the genuinely complete picture that only the patient sitting with the complexity can produce. Marcus Aurelius was famous for this in his governance. The decisions that were genuinely difficult, the ones that involved genuine tensions between legitimate competing considerations, were never made quickly. They were held, examined from multiple perspectives, brought to people whose perspectives differed from his own, subjected to the specific, patient, multidimensional engagement that genuine complexity requires before the genuinely wise response became clear. Practice sitting with complexity, not as the paralysis of someone who cannot decide, as the specific, patient, genuinely wisdom-building practice of someone who understands that the premature resolution of genuine complexity produces the confident wrong answer rather than the patient right one. The fifth step to wisdom is the practice of learning from every failure with the specific quality of honest, forward-looking, genuinely curious engagement that converts the failure from an event to be managed into the material of the genuine development that the failure genuinely contains. The wise person is not the person who fails less. They may fail more. The ambitious engagement with the genuinely difficult things that wisdom makes possible also makes failure more frequent and more significant than the careful management of the comfortable territory that the wisdom-avoiding life consistently produces.
The wise person is the person who extracts more from the failures, the specific, honest, completely real learning that the failure genuinely contains, and that the person who is managing the failure rather than engaging with it is consistently failing to extract. Every failure is information, specific, personal, completely real information about what the current approach is not adequate for, what the current understanding is not accurate about, and what the current character is not yet sufficient to meet. This information, honestly received, specifically identified, genuinely integrated, is among the most valuable available for the genuine development of genuine wisdom, because genuine wisdom is, in significant part, the accumulated, integrated, genuinely processed learning from the accumulated, significant, honestly engaged failures of a genuine human life. The person who has failed much and learned genuinely from the failure has a kind of wisdom that the person who has failed less or learned less from the failure cannot match. Not because the failure is inherently valuable, it is not, but because the genuine learning from the genuine failure is irreplaceable in its specificity, its personal relevance, and its embodied quality. It is not the theoretical understanding of the category of error. It is the specific, personal, viscerally real understanding of this error, in this situation, in this specific expression of the limitation that the honest examination reveals. Seneca wrote about this with the specific, warm, honest quality of someone who had failed significantly and had extracted from the failure the specific, genuine wisdom that only the failure could have produced. He said that no person becomes wise without suffering, not because suffering is inherently productive, but because the genuine engagement with the genuine difficulty of the genuine failure, honestly processed and genuinely integrated, produces a kind of understanding that the comfortable, successful, unchallenging life simply does not produce. Learn from every failure, not as the performance of growth for the audience that is watching, as the specific, honest, forward-looking extraction of the genuine learning that the genuine failure genuinely contains. Because the failure, honestly learned from, is one of the most reliable available steps toward the genuine wisdom that makes the next significant failure less likely, and the next significant success more genuinely built. The sixth step to wisdom is the practice of the genuine question. The specific, developed, daily practiced capacity to ask the questions that reveal the genuine dimension of the situation, rather than the questions that confirm the pre-existing conclusion. The quality of the questions you habitually ask is one of the most reliable available indicators of the quality of the wisdom you are building. Because the question determines what information is sought, and the information that is sought determines what information is available for the assessment, and the information that is available for the assessment determines the quality of the assessment, and the quality of the assessment determines the quality of the response, and the quality of the response in the genuinely complex, frequently ambiguous, always contextually specific situations of genuine life is the quality of the wisdom being expressed. Most people's habitual questions are confirmation questions, questions that seek the information that confirms the conclusion they have already reached. Why is this person wrong? What is the evidence that this approach is correct? How does this situation confirm what I already believed about it? These questions are genuinely answered by the specific, selectively assembled information that they were designed to seek. And the answer, confirming, comfortable, consistent with the pre-existing conclusion, is received as the evidence, rather than the artifact of the question that produced it. The wisdom-building question is the genuine question, the question that does not know its answer before it is asked. What am I missing here? What would a genuinely informed person who disagrees with my conclusion see in this situation that I am not seeing? What evidence, if I encountered it, would change my assessment? What am I most confident about in this situation, and is my confidence in proportion to the quality of the evidence that supports it? Socrates was the master of the genuine question, not the rhetorical question that already knows its answer and is designed to lead the respondent toward the predetermined conclusion. The genuine question, the one that is genuinely open, that could genuinely receive any number of answers, that is asked with the genuine quality of someone who does not know what the answer will be and who is genuinely interested in what the answer actually is. Practice the genuine question in the specific, daily, completely real situations where the confirmation question is the natural and the comfortable and the habitually produced question, and discover that the genuine question consistently produces information that the confirmation question consistently fails to find, and that the information the genuine question produces is consistently more relevant to the wise response than the information the confirmation question produces. The seventh step to wisdom is the practice of perspective taking. The specific, daily, Stoic grounded practice of deliberately inhabiting the perspective of the other person, the opposite position, the genuinely different viewpoint, not as the performance of open-mindedness, but as the genuine, practical, completely real attempt to understand what the situation looks like from a position you do not naturally occupy. The limitation of wisdom is almost always the limitation of perspective. The genuinely wise assessment of the genuinely complex situation requires the genuinely complete picture. And the genuinely complete picture is never available from a single perspective, however extensive and however honestly maintained. The single perspective, however honest, is always the perspective of a specific person, embedded in a specific history, shaped by specific experience, limited to the specific portion of the situation that the specific position can see. The wise response to this limitation is the deliberate, specific, genuinely practiced expansion of the perspective. Not the comfortable expansion, the expansion into the perspectives that are already similar to one's own and that produce the same or similar conclusions. The genuine expansion, the deliberate, specifically practiced inhabiting of the perspectives that are most different from one's own. The perspectives that see what the natural perspective does not see, that find significant what the natural perspective finds trivial, that are troubled by what the natural perspective is comfortable with. Marcus Aurelius practiced this systematically. Before making significant governance decisions, he sought out the people whose perspectives were most different from his own. Not the people who would confirm the direction he was inclined toward, but the people who would challenge it, who would see what his own perspective was missing, who would identify what the decision looked like from the position that his own position could not reach. Not because he deferred to every perspective he sought. Wisdom is not the averaging of all available perspectives. It is the synthesis, the specific, honest,
genuinely engaged integration of what the multiple perspectives collectively reveal about the actual situation that is not visible from any single perspective alone. Practice perspective taking in the specific, daily, genuinely uncomfortable quality of actually trying to understand what the situation looks like from positions that your own perspective does not naturally occupy. Not as the intellectual exercise of the person who is performing multi-perspectivism, as the genuine, practical, completely real attempt to expand the picture of the situation to include what the natural perspective is missing.
The eighth step to wisdom is the practice of what the Stoics called the reserve clause, the specific, Stoic-grounded, completely practical habit of acting with a specific qualification that you will update your assessment if the information warrants the update. The unwise person acts from confidence. The wise person acts from commitment. The difference, subtle in the description and consequential in the practice, is the specific relationship with new information that each produces. Confidence is the state of having concluded that the current assessment is correct, and of acting from that conclusion without the specific, ongoing openness to the information that might require the conclusion to be revised. The confident person acts, and then, when the action produces a result that differs from what the confidence predicted, explains the discrepancy in ways that protect the confidence rather than updating the conclusion that produced it. The reserve clause is the specific, practical Stoic alternative. It is the habit built into the structure of every significant commitment and every significant action of acting with the specific acknowledgement that the current assessment is the best currently available and that new information will be genuinely received and genuinely integrated if it is genuinely relevant to the assessment. Not the performance of open-mindedness, the genuine structural commitment to updating the assessment when the evidence warrants the update. The specific, daily, genuinely practiced orientation of the person who is more interested in having the accurate assessment than in having the consistent one. This is what Gallus was doing with his 3 questions, not demonstrating his confident assessment of his friend's situation, genuinely trying to understand it. Specifically, practically, with the genuine reserve clause, the orientation that was prepared to receive whatever the questions produced and to integrate what they produced into the most accurate picture of the situation available. Build the reserve clause into every significant assessment, not as the paralysis of the person who cannot act without perfect information, as the genuine, practical, Stoic-grounded habit of acting from the best currently available assessment while remaining genuinely open to the information that might require the assessment to be revised. The 9th step to wisdom is the practice of patience with the wisdom-building process itself, the complete, honest, Stoic-grounded acceptance that genuine wisdom is not acquired in a course, a book, a retreat, or any bounded period of concentrated learning, but is built across the full arc of a genuinely examined human life. This is perhaps the most consistently underestimated feature of the genuine wisdom-building process, because the modern learning environment consistently presents wisdom as acquirable, as the content of the book that explains it, or the system that teaches it, or the course that delivers it in the specific, bounded, completable form that the modern learner is most comfortable with. It is not acquirable in this sense. Genuine wisdom is not the content of any single learning experience. It is the cumulative product of the full, daily, genuinely practiced, honestly examined experience of the genuinely examined life.
It is built from the specific, daily practices we have been discussing: the honest self-examination, the study of the wise, the genuine listening, the patient complexity, the learning from failure, the genuine question, the perspective taking, the reserve clause, practiced daily, across years and decades, with the genuine quality of someone who is more interested in becoming actually wise than in acquiring the credential or the appearance of wisdom. And it takes the time that it takes, not the time that impatience is comfortable with, not the time that the modern learning culture promises, the actual time that the actual building of genuine wisdom through genuine practice in genuine life actually requires. Marcus Aurelius was still practicing after 40 years, still examining, still finding the places where the wisdom was incomplete, still returning to the practices with the genuine quality of someone who understood that the examined life is not a project that is completed and then maintained, but a practice that is renewed every day for the entirety of the life that is genuinely committed to it. Be patient with the process. Not passive patience, the active, fully engaged, completely committed patience of the person who is doing the daily practice and trusting that the daily practice, over the genuine time that genuine wisdom actually takes, produces the genuine thing. Because it does. Consistently. Every person who has genuinely practiced the genuinely honest examined life for the genuine time that genuine wisdom requires has built something that the impatient, the shortcut-seeking, the credential-acquiring person does not build and cannot produce. The 10th step to wisdom is the practice of applying the wisdom to the actual life, the specific, daily, completely real expression of whatever wisdom has been built in the actual, ordinary, genuinely available choices of the actual day. Because here is the most important and the most consistently missed truth about wisdom. It is not primarily an intellectual achievement. It is not the knowing. It is the living of the knowing, the specific, daily, completely real expression of the genuine understanding in the genuine choices of the genuine life. The person who understands the wisdom but does not live it has not yet built wisdom. They have built knowledge about wisdom. And knowledge about wisdom, however extensive, is not the same as the wisdom that changes choices, that governs responses, that produces the specific, warm, completely genuine quality of the person whose every interaction reflects the long, honest, genuinely practiced building of the genuine examined life. The application is the test. The situation where the honest self-examination is costly but required. The moment where the genuine listening means receiving something uncomfortable. The complexity that cannot be resolved quickly and must be sat with. The failure that must be honestly examined rather than managed. The question that is genuine rather than confirming. The perspective that is genuinely inhabited rather than performed. The reserve clause that is genuinely applied rather than declared. The patience that is genuinely practiced rather than simply proclaimed. In these specific, ordinary, completely real moments, the actual moments of the actual day, the wisdom that has been built either shows itself or reveals that it has not yet been genuinely built. And the showing of the wisdom in the ordinary moment is both the expression of the building and the contribution to it. Because each genuine application of the genuine wisdom adds something to the wisdom that was there before the application. Each honest examination produces a slightly more honest examiner. Each genuine question produces a slightly more genuinely curious mind. Each patient sitting with complexity produces a slightly more patient capacity for the next complexity. The wisdom builds through the application, and the application is available right now, in the specific, ordinary, genuinely available moment of the actual day that is the only moment where the genuine application of the genuine wisdom is ever actually possible. Apply it right now, in this moment, in the specific, ordinary, completely real way that the genuine wisdom you have built requires its expression, and the genuine wisdom you are building requires its practice. The 11th step to wisdom is the complete, daily, Stoic-grounded practice of what might be called philosophical humility. The specific, genuine, completely non-performative quality of knowing the limits of what you know and holding what you know with the specific, appropriate proportion of confidence that the quality of the evidence genuinely supports. The unwise person is characterized by overconfidence, not necessarily loud, aggressive, obviously arrogant overconfidence, often the quiet, comfortable, completely natural confidence of the person who has not yet genuinely examined whether their confidence is in proportion to the evidence, who holds their convictions with a certainty that the certainty supporting evidence, honestly assessed, does not justify, who mistakes the familiarity of their own perspective for the accuracy of it. Philosophical humility is the specific, practiced, daily maintained recognition that the current understanding, however extensive and however honestly developed, is not the complete picture, that the situation contains dimensions not yet seen, that the assessment may need to be revised when the genuinely relevant information arrives, that the confidence with which the current assessment is held is appropriate only in proportion to the quality of the evidence that supports it. This humility is not the performance of modesty, the performative modesty that presents itself as open-minded while actually maintaining the pre-existing conclusion in the specific protected way that the performance of modesty allows. Philosophical humility is the genuine, specific, completely real recognition that what you currently know is a subset of what there is to know, a significant subset, honestly built, genuinely valuable, and that the remaining portion is both genuinely unknown and genuinely relevant to the wise assessment of the genuinely complex situations that genuine life produces.
As the specific, genuine, philosophically serious recognition that the person who knows the limits of their knowledge is epistemically better positioned than the person who does not, because the person who knows the limits is the person who knows where the additional inquiry is most needed. Build philosophical humility, not as the self-deprecating performance of someone who is presenting their intelligence as lesser than it is, as the specific, honest, completely genuine recognition that the current understanding has limits, that the limits are genuinely unknown, and that the genuine inquiry, the daily, honest, genuinely curious practice of the examined life, is the specific, ongoing practice through which the limits are progressively extended. The 12th step to wisdom is the practice of genuine service, the complete, Stoic-grounded, completely real application of whatever wisdom has been built in the specific, genuine, completely real service of the people whose lives the wisdom is positioned to genuinely improve. The Stoics were explicit about this. Wisdom that is not expressed in service is not complete wisdom. The person who has built extensive wisdom and keeps it exclusively in the service of their own understanding in their own life has built something genuinely valuable, but has not yet expressed it in its fullest possible form. The fullest form of wisdom is the wisdom that genuinely helps the people who genuinely need what the wisdom has genuinely produced. Not the performed service, not the expertise demonstrated for the audience that confirms its impressive quality. The genuine service, the specific, warm, completely real engagement with the genuine situation of the specific person who genuinely needs what the genuine wisdom can genuinely provide. Gallus served his friend, not with the impressive display of his extensive understanding, with the 3 questions, the patient listening, the genuine curiosity, the specific, completely real engagement with the friend's actual situation, rather than with the impressive presentation of Gallus's impressive understanding of situations like it. That service, specific, humble, genuinely aimed at the friend's genuine need, rather than at the confirmation of Gallus's wisdom, was the fullest expression of the genuine wisdom that Gallus had built. Not the wisdom displayed, the wisdom deployed, in the complete, genuine, completely real service of the person who needed it. Serve genuinely with whatever wisdom you have built, in the specific, daily, completely real opportunities that the actual life consistently provides for the genuine expression of whatever genuine understanding the genuine practice has produced. Because the genuine service, the specific, warm, completely real deployment of the genuine wisdom in the genuine service of the genuine need is both the fullest expression of the wisdom and one of the most powerful contributions to its continued building. The 13th step to wisdom is the integration, the complete daily living, breathing, genuinely practiced expression of all 12 preceding steps as a single, coherent, completely real way of inhabiting the actual life. Because here is the deepest truth about wisdom that the Stoics understood and that Gallus demonstrated and that every genuinely wise person who has ever lived has confirmed. Wisdom is not a collection of practices. It is a way of being, a specific, completely genuine, gaily expressed quality of the person who has done the work of the examined life for the genuine time that the examined life takes to produce the genuine thing. The honest self-examination practiced daily becomes not the discipline of examining, but the natural quality of the honest self.
The genuine listening becomes not the practice of listening, but the natural way of receiving what others say. The patient complexity becomes not the discipline of sitting with what is difficult, but the natural orientation of the person who has learned that the genuinely complex situation always contains more than the first impression reveals. The philosophical humility becomes not the practice of qualifying conclusions, but the natural epistemological posture of the person who has genuinely internalized the limits of what any single perspective can see. All of it becomes natural. Not effortless. The examined life is never effortless, but natural. The way that the practice musician's playing becomes the natural expression of the years of practice rather than the effortful application of the techniques that the practice originally required. And the wisdom that is natural, expressed without the effort of the beginner because the practice has built the character from which it flows naturally, is the wisdom that other people feel when they are in the presence of the genuinely wise person. Not impressed by, not awed by, feel. The specific, warm, completely real quality that made Gallus's friend feel seen and understood, and genuinely helped in the conversation with the three questions that did not announce themselves as wise, but that were, from the genuine wisdom of the person asking them, exactly the questions that the situation required. That wisdom is available in the specific, daily, completely real practice of every step we have discussed today. Not immediately, over the genuine time that genuine wisdom actually takes, but genuinely, with the specific, completely real quality of the thing itself rather than the impressive performance of it. Begin the practice, today, with the honest self-examination of tonight's evening review, with the genuine listening of the next conversation, with the patient sitting with the next complexity, with the genuine question in the next situation that the confirming question would be more comfortable to ask. Begin today, and continue tomorrow, and every day that follows, because wisdom is not achieved, it is practiced, and the practicing, daily, honestly, specifically, genuinely, is the most important and the most completely available practice of the genuinely examined life.
Subscribe to the Stoic Mindset right now because this channel is where the complete, honest, philosophically grounded, practically applicable steps to genuine wisdom, not the credential of wisdom, not the appearance of wisdom, not the intellectual familiarity with wisdom as a concept, but the genuinely daily practiced, genuinely life-changing quality of the person who has done the work of the genuinely examined life, are built week after week with the full depth and the full honesty and the full practical weight that the Stoic tradition always brought to the most important question available to a human being. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the bell notification so that every new lesson reaches you the moment it is released. Every week on this channel, we go all the way into the ancient wisdom that produced Gallus and Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus and Socrates, people who were not wise because they were born with a special capacity that others lack, but because they practiced the specific, daily, completely real practices that genuine wisdom actually requires, and that this channel is dedicated to making available, understandable, and completely applicable to every person who is genuinely serious enough about becoming genuinely wise to do the genuinely demanding daily work that genuine wisdom actually takes. The people who find this channel and stay are the people who have decided that the genuine thing is worth the genuine work, who have decided that the wise response, the natural, warm, genuinely helpful, completely real, wise response of the person who has built the genuine wisdom through the genuine practice, is the most important thing they will ever build. Subscribe right now. Share this with someone who is looking for wisdom in the places where wisdom is not found, and who needs to hear that the place where wisdom is found is the same place it has always been found, in the specific, daily, unglamorous, completely genuine practice of the honestly examined life. Come back for the next lesson, because what we are doing here together is exactly what Gallus built across the years of his quietly examined life. The specific, real, completely genuine capacity to see more clearly, one step at a time, one honest examination at a time, one genuine question at a time. Subscribe now.